we practice the Gayatri Mantra. No? We don't. Are we practicing the Gayatri Mantra?
I don't do.
No?
No.
Have we learnt it over here?
No, we are not doing that Gayatri Mantra here. We are doing Omkar here.
Omkar.
Omkar.
So what we'll do this time, we'll...
Yeah.
But you know the Gayatri Mantra. What would we mean when we say the words Bhu Bhuva Swa? What would it mean? What do we understand there?
Is it all different loka?
Loka? Or is it a scale? Can we say there is a scale? Is he talking about something outside or is he talking about something within us? Within us. Outside also, but within us. So, in the Gayatri Mantra, there's talk of Savita Dev, right? So it's Savita Dev. So, we'll make a relationship, sun, planets, earth, moon. On a scale, what would it mean? On a scale, what would it mean? That the sun is more intelligent than the planets. The planets have a higher level of intelligence than the earth. Right? And the earth has a higher level of intelligence than the moon. Right? So we have a kind of, what do you call, scale, a kind of gradation from gross intelligence or zero intelligence to a higher form of intelligence. So when he's using the mantra, this scale is within us. This scale is within us. Right? So we say man is born on the earth. So what choice does man have? What choice does man have? What choice does man have? He has the choice to rise to the level of the planets, rise to the level of the sun, or he has the choice to fall to the level of the moon, to fall to the level of the moon. This is man's choice. This is man's choice. He is born with this choice. Either he can rise to a higher level of intelligence, understanding, a higher level of consciousness, or he can fall deeper into the sleep of life. All negative emotions lead us where? To the moon. To the moon. All negative emotions take us to the moon. Right? Maybe the moon wants to also rise in intelligence. Everything in the universe wants to grow, wants to, climb the ladder up. Right? So maybe the moon needs some special energy to grow, become the earth, or when the earth becomes the sun. So that energy is provided by a machine called man. And when does he provide that energy? Whenever he reacts. Whenever we react. So whenever we react, whenever we are negative, of course negativity is a reaction, right? Then we are feeding the moon, throwing all the energy out into the moon. So there are different levels in life, and there are different levels within us. Within us. Now, can we say that the lower is seen and understood by the higher, but the higher is not seen and understood by the lower? Supposing I've climbed a hill, right? So I can see the cars going. So I can see the cars in time, that is the past of the car. I can see the future of the car. I can see the present of the car all together. So just in space, at a little higher level, I am able to see so many things which the person who's sitting in the car cannot see. Right? So that which is higher can see the lower, or we can use another word, the lower is manifest to the higher, but the higher is unmanifest to the lower. Now, everything that happens in our lives, can we see the cause, or do the causes of things that happen in our lives, they lie in a different dimension which can normally not be seen by the senses? The events of life, everything that is happening in our life, do we see the causes, or are the causes hidden from us? The causes are hidden from us. What we see are effects. What we see are effects. We don't see the cause of things, we see the effects of things. The senses cannot see the causes. If our thinking is sensual thinking, that is only that thinking which is related to the senses, then we'll never be able to enter into that dimension where we see the causes of things. Right? So we have to lift our thinking from the thinking of the senses. એટલે આપણું જે વિચારવાનું છે એ ઇન્દ્રિય ગમ્ય છે, રાઈટ? અને જે વિચારવાનું ઢબ ઉત્પન્ન કરવાનું છે એ ઇન્દ્રિય તીત છે. ઇન્દ્રિય. Till then we will never understand everything. We will always look for some sensual understanding of everything through the senses. So the causes of things are always at a higher level than the effects. Now, when we have an idea in the mind, that idea is at a very different level from putting the idea into action. Right? The idea is the cause of the action. The thought is the cause of the action. The architect is the cause of the house. But before he built the house, he had the idea of the house in his mind. So before we build any house means whatever action we do, what is there in the mind? The thought or the idea before we do anything. The senses can see the house which is built. The senses cannot see the idea which is lying in the architect's mind. When the order comes into the level of the senses, which the five senses can see, how does the idea change its order?
Environment, like teacher બધાની સાથે કેવી રીતે વર્કઆઉટ થાય છે.
No, no. When the architect when he has the idea for the full
Event.
house.
Right, yeah.
For the full
Yeah, right.
house. Right? But when it comes down to the physical level, what happens?
It's fragmented.
Pieces.
He has to start from ABC, he has to start from the brick.
Right.
In his mind, he has the full house. Can you understand how the world was created by God? The idea was there, but he had to start from brick by brick. I don't know if I'm coming across.
So here it is top down, here is bottom up.
Right? So I may have a very good idea in my mind about a business, and many people have very good ideas. Right? But what happens when they come into real life? They forget that the idea, the business has to be built brick by brick. Right? Brick by brick. Now, when I have an idea in my mind, and when I start applying that idea into normal action, because we are going to study the three forces, what is tamas, rajas and sattva. Today I'm not going to talk about them. Tomorrow I'm going to bring them out. Today I'm just giving you some ideas. Just some ideas. We go very slowly. Right? So, what is there in the idea, what is not there in the idea, but comes in the normal application? Come on, all of you have started a business or done something. I mean, what is there?
Effort.
I have an idea to build a house in the mind, or I have an idea to start a business in the mind. An idea, very good idea. But when I start putting that idea into action, something else comes, which is not there in the mind, but is there in the obstacles, difficulties. Can you understand? And even the people who have very good idea, they fail. They fail because they forget to take into account the obstacles. This obstacles is what we are going to tomorrow call as passive force, tamas. Right? The idea is what? The idea is what? Rajas. The idea is rajas. The idea which I have in my mind is rajas. Right? It is the active force. It is the desire. Right? But when I start implementing the desire in the normal plane of life, in the dimension in which my five senses are moving, I have to implement it in a reverse order. Implement it in a reverse. And when I start implementing the idea which is already made in the architect's mind in a reverse order, the second force comes in, which we will call tomorrow as passive force. Passive force. Obstacles start coming in. So the architect has to build the house brick by brick. So we have an idea where we want to go. Right? Where we want to go. We may have an idea that we want to rise to a certain state of consciousness. We may have an idea that we want to recognize something divine within us. And that idea is a good idea. It's nice to have an aim. But when we start, walking towards that aim, we have to start step by step. We can't jump to it automatically. And the problem starts when people have an idea and they imagine that they have already reached there and they have not walked back in reverse order to the idea. So we have two forces, the active force, the desire to do something, and we have the passive force, the obstacles which come in front of the desire, and both of them are in two different dimensions of time and space. One is at a higher level, one is at a lower level. Now we take man. Man. And man is a product of nature. Man is a product of nature. So, today what man is, but nature must have conceived man millions and millions of years ago. Can you understand? Maybe man has not reached to that level of conception which nature had planned. Still, something is left. Right? So, nature had an idea, and something has evolved through thousands of years or millions of years of evolution, come to this point which we call man. Can we see the whole struggle which has gone into the making of man? The making of man. So many experiments, some must have failed. The dinosaurs failed. Nature may have done so many experiments in the animal world, in the plant world, to come to this final stage which she calls as man, right? So many of those experiments must have failed. And step by step, something has come to what we call as man. Now, what is man's destiny? What is man's destiny? Is nature going to fulfill his destiny, or does he have to make an effort to fulfill his own destiny?
He has to make effort.
Effort. So till here, nature has come, but now man has to make an effort to fulfill his destiny.
If nature had the idea, and nature did not have in that idea for me to do something, then how can we do it?
So, nature had the idea.
And if that my doing something was not in that idea, suppose, how do I know that it's there in nature's idea or not? Because the idea comes first, right?
The idea came first.
And if my contribution is not written in that idea, written in the sense that it's the verbiage I'm using, written, but it's not defined in that idea.
Right.
Then what I may think that I should do, it may not be, I don't know, I don't even know how to ask the question.
No, I got what you're saying. Right? So let's put it in another way. Supposing nature's idea was to bring man to a crossroad and leave him there. Then it was man's choice whether to take this road or this road. Right? So nature brought man to a certain level. Let us call that the earth. Because we're going to study all this in the next few days. So today I'm just throwing ideas at you. Right? I'm not taking the subject as yet. Right? So say nature brought man to a level called the earth. And she left him over there. And now it is man's choice whether he falls to the moon or he rises to the planets and rises to the sun. This is what the Gayatri Mantra is about, no? Right? There are 3 levels: earth, Bhu, planets, Bhuva, Swaha, sun. Right? There are 3 levels. You understand? Right? So nature brought a man over here and he says, you want to climb this ladder, then now it is your choice. Or you want to fall back down, then you go to the moon. Right? So that was nature's idea. We are going to go, how are we going to enter into this subtle world? How are we going to move into this subtle world of ideas, of thoughts? But we are not even conscious of our actions this time. Right? Now, nature must have conceived something like what we call the brain of man, and maybe there is no instrument in the universe like the brain of man, right? Now when we have a thought in the mind, the thought is not seen, but the action which we do out of the thought is seen. The action which we do out of the thought is seen, right? So the thought is at an unmanifest level, but the action is lying at a manifest level. Now, can we stand between between the thought which is unseen and the action which is seen? Can we bring our consciousness to that level, or we are a slave of the thought? So, if there is no space between having a thought and my acting upon the thought, right, then I am living in a state of hypnosis, which we will call as sleep. I am living in a state of hypnosis, state of sleep, and this is what everybody is doing, because nobody is standing in that in-between space. Right? So the whole effort, whether of meditation, whether of three-step rhythmic breathing, the first step is to be able to have the thought, but be able to stand in, I will not act upon this thought. To be able to say no, I will not act upon this thought. The minute I automatically act upon the thought, I am a machine. I become a machine of that thought. Then which road have I taken? These two roads are available to me. Which road have I taken? I have fallen to the moon. I have fallen to the moon. Right? So, now, just we'll take again that nature made man, and what we see as man is there. We don't see what was nature's idea. Now that idea must have come from somewhere. Where could that idea have come from? Or is there a side to man which the senses cannot see, which the mind cannot understand? And it is that side of man which, when we rise in consciousness, which we want to know, which we want to understand. So we say the thought is at a different level, the action is at a different level. The action is visible to the senses, the thought is invisible to the senses. That is, all the causes in our life are lying somewhere else. Now, where did the thought come from? Where did the thought come from?
Desire.
Did it come from something still higher? Did it come from something still higher? So supposing we say the action is bhu, the thought is bhuva. Is there a cause of the thought lying somewhere higher? Right? Would we not like to know that cause and understand that cause? Can you understand? Because we are saying that what level, the scale we are using is the scale of the Gayatri Mantra. The scale of the Gayatri Mantra, right? So that thought, it must have come from somewhere, it must have had its root in something which is even more unmanifest than the thought. So we'll say there is action, there is cause of action, thought, and there is cause of cause which is lying somewhere else, which we know nothing about. Absolutely nothing. Whether a level of consciousness can enter into that, what we call swaha, the cause of the cause. Now action will be of two kinds. One will be apparent to the five senses, and one may not be easily apparent to the five senses. That is, after having the thought, I immediately act upon it, but something I may act upon it in a different way which is not normally seen. What would it mean? What would it mean? Right. Supposing I get a thought, okay, you have worn a white and black dress. Now supposing I complimentary your dress, then I have acted upon the thought. I got the thought. Why the thought came, I don't know. That lies something higher. The cause of the cause is lying in something higher. But I got the thought that you come wearing a white and black dress. I say the dress is very nice. Then I have immediately acted upon the thought. Right? But instead of complimenting you, right? Supposing I start something in my mind, today being Tuesday, Tuesday is ruled by Mars, right? Black color is ruled by Saturn. Saturn and Mars are enemies. On Tuesday you should not wear black color. Of course I won't tell you. Right? What has happened? Have I still acted upon the thought or not acted upon it? I have acted upon the thought. So one action was apparent, where I said something to you, and one action was not apparent. Not apparent, but it was still an action. It was still an action. Right? Can you see? Supposing somebody owes me some money. So when he comes to me, I get the thought that he owes me some money. Where the thought has come from, we have not yet gone into that. Why the thought came, we have not gone into that. Either I can say, can you please give me some money, but I may not be able to tell it to him. It's not so easy to tell it to him. Then what goes on? But I'm still acting the thought inside. Can you get? In both the cases, I have been hypnotized by the thought. What Patanjali calls vritti saropyam itaratra. I have taken the shape of the thought. My consciousness, there's a zero level of consciousness. I have been totally carried away by the thought, either this way or in that way. Right? Now, unless I am able to stand in between, that okay, the thought has come, is it worth acting upon this thought? Because the minute I automatically sign the check, the minute I automatically say I to the thought, the action has started. Whether this way or that way, either in the mind or outside the mind. So we say there is something higher, unmanifest to the thought, which is higher than the thought. It allows the thought to enter my mind, but still the thought is not seen by the senses. When I act the thought, either it is seen by the senses, or I can act the thought in a way which is not seen by the senses. In both cases, I have been carried away by the thought. I have become a slave to the thought. My life is nothing but slavery. I am living in the bondage of slavery. Right? This is called as identification. That I am not standing in between. I have not brought my consciousness in between. Now, once we act on the thought, once we identify with the thought, do we then have to face the consequences, whatever that arise from our action? What do we call this? What do we call this? What do we call this? We call this the law of karma. We call this the law of karma, that the thought came from a higher dimension. I saw the thought, I observed the thought, and I stopped over there. Then am I creating any karma? Am I creating any karma? No. Because before the karma could be created, before I could sow the seed, I have stopped over there. I have stopped over there. I have brought consciousness. So in a state of consciousness, there is no karma. No karma. So I'm standing there, the thought has come, but the minute I act the thought out, I have now sown a seed which is going to invite something in the future, some consequence in the future, some action in the future, whether I think the thought inside or I act the thought outside. એક પતલી રેખા છે. વિચાર આવે છે અને વિચાર કરું છું. Right? He owes me money, મને વિચાર આવ્યો. This thought came, right? But he is like this way, વિચાર કર્યો. The thought pulled me into a state of hypnosis. I created karma out of the thought. Right? So we have to ask ourselves, we have done something now which is beyond our control. We have sown the seed. Now, what is karma? What is karma? What does it mean? What does it mean? I express the thought, right? Or I thought the thought inside. In both cases, I have done one little subtle action, one gross action. What does karma mean?
Karma.
Huh?
Don't do it.
I wish it was. What does it mean? What does it mean? To do. What law am I bound in? What law am I bound in? And what is the consequence of that law?
So like transaction has begun. So there will be a further action on transaction to
So
close the
what will
transaction.
that further action mean? What does it do? What does it do?
Reaction.
Okay, so one of the things I will say is that it will now put me more into slavery, right? Instead of reacting less, now I will react more. Okay, so the pattern of reaction has become stronger. If I had stood in between, then the pattern of reaction would have become weaker. First thing, right? Definitely. The pattern which in me is reacting to life every moment, right? do we get immediately about life? Every moment, which thought do we get immediately about life? Immediate.
Happiness.
Huh? Immediate. I like it or I dislike it. I like it or I dislike it. Right? You offer 5 rupees for this, then I may not like it. But you offer 10 rupees for this, I may like it. You get it? So every moment I have a reaction which is liking or disliking. But that has come. That has come. But do I start acting upon it? Can you see? I come to your home for lunch, right? And supposing you serve a beautiful vegetable, so immediately inside comes like, but I immediately, before I even look at the thought, I say, what a beautiful vegetable. Have I made the pattern of reaction stronger, or am I freeing myself from the pattern of reaction? Stronger. I have now bound more. I am bound more. I have not been able to stand in between, bring my consciousness in between. The thought came, beautiful vegetable. Now I pause. First bring in consciousness. My only aim of being born, the only aim of being born is to rise in consciousness. There is no other aim. There is no other aim. Is to rise in consciousness. And this, every life is giving us a choice every moment. Are we reacting? Then we are losing consciousness. Right? So we have to be able to learn to watch the thought, not shake hands with it immediately, not pass a judgment on it immediately, not allow it to seduce us, to carry us away. And once we are able to separate from the thought, thinking the thought, not having the thought. You can have the thought, as many thoughts have come because they are coming from somewhere else. Have as many thoughts as you want, but stop before thinking the thought. And if you can bring consciousness in there, then we have taken a big step on the ladder of consciousness before acting on the thought. Now, we are going to study the 3 forces. The 3 forces. Life is working at 3 levels. At 3 levels. What are the 3 levels at which life is working? The 3 levels. The movie is being cast on 3 screens simultaneously. The movie of life. The movie of life. It is being cast on 3 screens simultaneously. Which are those 3 screens? One is the screen of the 5 senses, which I see outside. What does our Shastra call this screen of the 5 senses? What does our Shastra call it? Calls it as Bhut Akash. Bhut Akash. Where we see through the 5 senses, we understand through the 5 senses what is happening, which is tangible to the 5 senses, which the 5 senses can understand and touch. That is called as Bhut Akash. Then, like we said, there's a reaction inside. There's a reaction inside. And that is like, now we are peeling the onion. Peeling the onion. So, let us put the first layer of the onion as a mood. As a mood. So, I don't like this, so which mood am I in? Good or bad? bad. But I like this, then I'm in a good mood. So every moment I am changing my mood. So every thought has an atmosphere, Vatavaran, right? And if I'm hypnotized by that Vatavaran, that atmosphere, I say, I like this, I dislike, I'm in a good mood, I am in a bad mood. Right? The thought goes away, but the mood remains, it persists. Right? You insulted me, you went away, everything went away, but the mood persists. Why? Because instead of bringing consciousness in between, I start acting upon the thought. I start thinking the thought. Can you understand all this? Right? So the first level of life is the Bhut Akash. The second is what we call as Chit Akash. Chit Akash. In Chit Akash, we start with the mood. We start from where that reaction came. It is the reaction to what is happening on the Bhut Akash. Right? So when you're watching the movie, it's a comedy movie or a tragic movie or a murder mystery. Right? So what is happening is on the screen. That is the Bhut Akash. But what is happening inside is happening on the Chit Akash. Right? So the what do you call, villain is creating trouble for the heroine and we are also getting angry. We are also getting angry. It is happening on which Akash? Chit Akash. And this Chit Akash is very big, layer by layer. It will start with what mood I am in. It will start with so many contradictions in the mind. There will be so many habits, so many attitudes. One by one we will go in. And once that Chit Akash is over, something else comes. And that is an Akash of the three forces. On that, nothing is personal any longer. Nothing is personal any longer. Recently, in Los Angeles, I had given a talk on my life as a disciple. Life as a disciple. So I said one of the exercises which my guru gave, that for 1 year not to take anything personally. It was an exercise. Right? So if my son falls ill, what do I do? What do I do? Tell me, come on.
Do necessary treatment, but don't take it personally.
Yes, so how do I see it? I have to see it as if he is somebody else's son. As if he is somebody else's son, and I have to act in that way. What I would do for somebody else's son, because I'm not allowed to take it personally. Not allowed to take anything personal. So if somebody takes away my money, right? But there's nothing like my money. It all comes from somewhere, no? Right? There's nothing like my money, but I'm not allowed to take it personally. Right? This is a very big exercise. Very, very big exercise. If we can even for 6 months.
One day. Then 1 week, then 1 month. Step by step.
But you are not then limited to you. You are like everybody. You are
It requires great struggle inside. Great struggle inside. Right? Somebody has parked his car blocking your car.
Yeah.
He's not blocking my car, he's blocking somebody else's car. Now I have to tell him as if I'm a good citizen. Can you understand? That we don't block other people's. Because I'm not allowed to take it personally. See, we have an aim to be free of the ego. Right? But is it so easy? We take efforts. If we really want to grow in life, if our aim is to grow in life, And there's nothing like my guru. There's nothing like my religion. There's nothing like my caste. There's nothing like my country. You understand? There's nothing like my cricket team. Okay.
But still you have to decide, I mean not decide is the wrong word, still you have to make choices.
We can make choices without bringing in the
And action, choices and action.
So, won't you bring in consciousness automatically? So we have a third screen where nothing is personal. There are no people on that screen. There are only three forces. Right? I want to reach office in time, which force? Active force. I want to reach office in time, active force. But somebody's car is parked over there, which force? Passive force. Passive force. Right? And if it is personal, then the neutralized force comes as a reaction. And if it is non-personal, the neutralizing force comes as a consciousness. Comes in the form of consciousness. This is all that life is about, these three screens. Bhutakash, Chit Akash, and the three, what you call forces, Chid Akash. Chidda, consciousness, Chid Akash. So life is manifesting all the time on these three screens. How much we see of these three screens is our level of consciousness. When the Gayatri Mantra says Bhu Bhuva Swaha, it is talking about these three screens. Right? So we'll start. Now, because the universe is created and there is order in the universe, there has to be law, not man-made law. Income tax is a man-made law, right? But there are two basic laws which are the cause of everything in the universe. Right? The first is the law of three forces. The second is the law of seven. We will see how much time we have, how much interest you all also have if you want to go into it. So when we study the universe, it is the study of these two laws. The first law is the law of three. The law of three says that for any creation, anything to happen, whether on the most gross level or whether on the most subtle level, it is created through three forces. Right? When we study the three forces, we will study them in nature and we will study them within ourselves. The first force is called the active force. Now let us try to put it in another way. Supposing we say there is an absolute, right? And that absolute had a desire inside to create the universe. Let us call that absolute as Shiva. We call that absolute as Shiva. Give it a name. So he said, I want to create the universe. So he created Shakti. Who creates the universe? Shiva can't do anything. Who creates the universe? Shakti creates the universe. He tells her to go and create the universe. So in Yoga Sutra, this will be called as Purush, Shiva, Shakti, Prakriti. So Purush and Prakriti. Right? So, Shiva can't do anything. Nothing is in his hands. He has given the duty to Shakti. So even if Shiva wants to eat ice cream, he has to ask Shakti. And if Shakti doesn't want to give it to him, right? He can't eat ice cream. Now what is Shakti? What is Shakti? What is Prakriti? When we use the term Prakriti, when we use the term Shakti, what does it imply? What does it imply? Three forces. Shakti, when we study Sankhya, Prakriti means three gunas. The three gunas, the three forces. When we talk about Prakriti, we mean the three forces. Right? Now, in her original state, Prakriti or Shakti, she is in a state of rhythm and balance. So there are no gunas over there. No gunas over there. Everything is in a state of total nothingness. Just rhythm and balance. Now, out of that rhythm and balance, the first thing which comes out is the desire or the sankalp of the Absolute to create the universe. To create the universe. So, one force comes outside of that equilibrium, something comes out and it says, I want to create the universe. Let me create. Let me be the creator. This is the active force or rajas. We will number it as 1. I'll do all this numbering tomorrow after I get a pen. We will number it as 1. But if you want to create something, what do you need? What do you need? Material. Right? So another force came out and said, you want to create, right? I will become the material to create. When we were little children, we used to play with clay. So clay is the material to create the universe, right? Our universe. So first force came out, Rajas, the active force. I want to create, but what to create with? So another force came out and he says, you want to create, I will become the instrument of creation. I will become the material of creation. This was tamas, the passive force. The passive force. But something has to balance the two. Right? My desire to build the house, active force. Cement and concrete, passive force. But how much of cement, how much of concrete is needed at each stage? You need one more force, which is the intelligence which balances the two. This was called as neutralizing force. Neutralizing force or sattva. It is these three forces which are at work all the time on the third screen. I'm in a hurry to go to office, but an obstacle comes in the way. Active force, go to office. Passive force, obstacle comes in the way. This is the law of life. There are no people on that screen. There are no personalities. There's just the dance of the three forces. Right? Yeah.
Why that desire to begin with? Why did you desire to create the universe?
That was inbuilt. We don't call it as desire, we call it as sankalp. But in English we don't have two different words for.
But why that sankalp? Why?
There is no why. There is only he had created it sometime in the past and he desired to create it. Okay. That is all. Right? It's called wrong question. It's called wrong question.
That's mind.
Huh?
That's mind.
So we will number these three, 1, 2, 3. But 1, 2, 3 will be numbered in order of appearance. In order of appearance. Active came first, passive came second, neutralizing came third. Neutralizing came third. But supposing we were to number them in order of density. In order of density, how will we number them? Most heavy is the passive because it is the material. The material. Supposing I get angry, right? So, which is the passive force here? Which is the passive force here? The material called anger. The material called anger. See, now we'll have to work on every event in life, which is active, which is passive, which is neutralizing. This is not something which we learn in theory. We'll have to practice this every moment in our life. Right? Now, like I said, the three forces are outside, the three forces are inside. Again, later on we'll see the intelligence, that is the third force of balancing them, can come from life, it can come from a higher teaching also. It can come from a higher teaching. Now let us see some examples. Supposing this is a lever, right? This is a lever, right? So the weight I put on the lever is the passive force. The lever is the active force, but the fulcrum is the neutralizing force, right? Or you take the case of a windmill. The wind is the active force. The building of the windmill is the passive force, but the vanes which can turn are the neutralizing force. They convert the active force and the passive force. They balance them in such a way that they create electricity. They create electricity. Now, this meeting of active, passive and neutralizing, it creates an event in life. If the three do not meet, no event is created. This creation of an event we will call as a triad. We will call as a triad. A chain of events is a chain of triads. Chain of triads. Right? I went to the breakfast table, but the toast got burnt. Right? From that I got angry. Right? And I, got angry, and then I didn't see what I was doing, so I hit my leg against a stone outside. Right? Then instead of going to the office, I had to go to the hospital to tie a bandage. Can you see? So each event in life leading to another is a change of active, passive, neutralizing. One relating to the other. At one point, by understanding the neutralizing force, we can change the active into passive and passive into active. And this is the whole secret of consciousness and living a life consciously. How to change these forces. Yeah.
Can you give example of active making active as passive and making passive as active?
Right. I'll just give an example. So, I hit my leg against the stone. The stone is passive.
Yeah, it's an obstruction.
Obstruction. My wanting to walk out is
Active.
active. Now, can I make the stone passive? How will I make the stone? Can I make the stone active? From passive, can I make it active? How will I do that?
A thought
Right? Then,
that it was destined or
no.
Trying to move the stuff.
That I am now in a state of irritation. I am now in a state of irritation. So I make the stone active, that I want to be free of irritation. The irritation becomes passive. The irritation was active. The stone was passive. I make the stone active. I say, and I make the irritation passive, and I separate from the irritation. I increase my level of consciousness. Increase my level of consciousness. Can you see? I have changed the active with the, substituted the active and passive forces. Right? So each moment in life, through consciousness, we have the knack of substituting active for passive and passive for active. Sometimes it happens accidentally. And when it happens accidentally, great things are created in life. Very great things are created. But it happens accidentally. The person has not done it consciously. Right? You get it? So, the example I like the most is, right, in the first over, Yuvraj Singh had a fight with Flintoff. So, passive matter was anger. Can you see? And his, the inner pattern of hate was active. And the passive matter was anger.
Yeah.
Right? In the next over, anger became active. The ball became passive. He hit 6 sixes. Can you see? So, wherever you see any great things in life which are happening accidental, it has always happened by an exchange of the active and passive forces. And if we can consciously understand this law, then we learn it. Right? I think we have also put the six processes.
Yeah, that's what
6 processes. We have put, I think, so those 6 processes are created by the 3 forces. Tomorrow I'll take the 3 forces, and day after I'll take the 6 processes. In Jainism, what do they call the 6 processes?
What 6 process?
6 processes, I've not yet talked about it. We'll talk day after. What do they call it in Jainism? Kram. To change the Kram. Right? 3 forces are found in every religion. Every religion, whether it is Father, Son and Holy Ghost, or active, passive and neutralizing, or Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, whatever you see. But science does not easily recognize 3 forces. It only recognizes 2 forces. 2 forces. Right? Because for science it is either active or passive, or it is positive electricity or negative electricity. Even though they have found a neutron, but they still recognize only 2 forces. But all systems of ancient religion, they talk of 3 forces that 2 cannot produce. Right? And later we'll go into what is the seeing of the 2, which is the law of the pendulum. Okay. Now we'll leave this on the side. We'll just do some revision of last year. Right? When we talk about our being, what do we mean? This we did last year. What do we mean? Again, it is made of 3 parts. When I use the word I, right? What do I mean? What do I mean? When I use the word I, what do I mean?
Ego.
So the ego cannot be seen. We are made of 3 parts. 3 parts. Because again we are going to there change the active and passive. Later on we'll understand that. Right? We are made of 3 parts. Yeah?
Maybe my consciousness, my sanskar and my physical body.
No. Something which is real, something which is acquired. એક જે સત છે real, એક જે મેળવેલું છે, અને one which is imaginary. We are made of three parts. What is born is real. What is born is real. But what is the first thing which we acquire?
Name.
Name. Name. Now, before acquiring the name, there is a feeling of I. Does that change after acquiring the name? Then what becomes I? The name becomes I. The name becomes I. The name becomes I. So we really don't know what is our real part. Because whenever somebody takes our name, we feel that is I. The feeling of I which we have is totally related to the name. Right? But the name was given. It was acquired. It is not the real. Right? Now, who goes to school? Does the real part go to school or does the name go to school?
Real.
The name goes to school. The degrees go to the real part or they go to the name?
We go to the name.
Go to the name. Who gets married? The real part gets married or does the name get married? Then we have children, so we acquire. Children, is any of it real? Nothing to do with the real. And then of course we have an imaginary part. Imaginary part. Right? So when I use the word I, there is nothing real. I have forgotten what was real in that I. But do I include the imaginary? Do I include the imaginary? When I use the word I, do I include the word the imaginary? What?
A doctor, for example.
Right?
So, doctor is imaginary.
Doctor is acquired.
Okay.
Doctor is acquired. But if the doctor makes a picture of himself as the best doctor in the world, that is imaginary.
Good doctor. Okay.
Yeah, that is imaginary. Okay. Now, we'll talk about using the word I. So, I'm using the word I, but I get elected as the president of the Rotary Club. Right? Does the feeling of I change? Does it change? Yes.